Mastering relative pronouns versus relative adverbs, key differences explained. Relative pronouns and relative adverbs are both used to link grammatical elements in a sentence. Relatives are words that are used to connect grammatical elements. They connect grammatical elements that provide extra information to sentences. The extra information may be relevant to the meaning of the sentence, restrictive, or just provide additional meaning that can be easily excluded from the sentence, non-restrictive. Relative pronouns. Relative pronouns are simply pronouns that can be used to form relative clauses. Relative clauses, also known as adjective clauses, are clauses that modify nouns. They provide extra information about nouns in a sentence. Take for example, the boy who lives here is sleeping outside. The book which I lent you is legendary. The man whose house was robbed is emotionally downcast. John knows the kid whom was beaten for theft. We met the man whose father was a soldier. Each of the sentences above contain a relative clause, introduced by the WH words. As seen in the sentences, relative pronouns connect relative clauses to nominal elements in a sentence, providing additional information about them which may or may not be relevant to the meaning of the sentence. When the information provided by a relative clause is relevant to the meaning of a sentence, it is a restrictive relative clause, while it is a non-restrictive relative clause when the information it provides is not relevant to the meaning of a sentence. Relative pronouns are not only used to introduce relative clauses, but they are also used to start noun clauses. Noun clauses are formed with relative pronouns and some other grammatical elements that work together as a whole. Take for example, what he did is unfair. Whom he saw is still a mystery to us. He is not who you think he is. We don't know whose house is on fire. What he does is jump up and eat. Noun clauses, as formed by a combination of relative pronouns and other grammatical elements functioning as a whole, can function either at the subject or object level in a sentence, either performing or receiving the action of the subject. Relative adverbs. Relative adverbs are another group of relatives. And as their name suggests, they are relatives that function as adverbs. Unlike relative pronouns which form relative clauses, provides extra information about nouns, or noun clauses functioning as nouns in sentences, relative adverbs serve the purpose of modifying verbs in a sentence like other adverbs. Take for example, we know why you came here. They saw where you hid the money. John likes how you carry yourself. He knows when you are in a good mood. She talked while she ate her food on Sunday. If you look closely at the examples above, you would realize that the relative adverbs also introduce clauses to the sentences. But unlike relative pronouns, they do not introduce relative clauses or noun clauses, rather they introduce adverbial clauses which serve the purpose of modifying the verbs in the sentences. You would also notice that relative adverbs differ from relative pronouns even though they are both WH words. Relative pronouns are the following: who, whom, which, what, whose, while relative adverbs are why, while, when, where, and how. Since relative adverbs introduce adverbial clauses, they answer the questions where, when, how, and why. Adverbial clauses introduced by relative adverbs always come directly after the verbs they modify in sentences, just like regular adverbs. There are structural similarities that exist between relative pronouns and relative adverbs may tempt you to assume that they both connote the same thing, but to be sure of the differences, you need to look at their placements and functions in the sentences they find themselves. If it introduces a relative clause or noun clause, then it is a relative pronoun, but if it introduces an adverbial clause, modifying a verb, it is a relative adverb. See you soon.